Thank you for joining us, and you guys already know me, done this once before, so we're going to talk about the guest of honor here. Can I call you guest of honor?
Well, one.
Okay. Barbara Shipley is a Senior Vice President, Brand Integration at AARP. So, Barbara, I know you've had an interesting journey to get you to AARP, so can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So let me just start with something that happened on Sunday. My husband and I took my mother-in-law to an outdoor concert in Frederick, Maryland, right down the street. And he grew up in Frederick. She's been living there a long time. So you go to these outdoor concerts and you see a million people that you know. And so we were running into old friends. I didn't grow up there, but I go there a lot. And so we ran into this couple that we know, or he knew, I had never met. And I mentioned that I worked in D.C. at Penn Quarter, which is a neighborhood in D.C. And he said, "Oh, where do you work?" And I said, "Well, I work at AARP." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, I'm a member," very proudly. And I said, "Thank you." And he stopped for a second. He looked at me and he said, "I guess that means you work for me." And I loved that. That meant so much to me because he's right. That's exactly what I do. And there are 2,400 of us that work at AARP who every day know who we work for. And it's not just our members. It's everybody around the country who's aging, which is all of you. And helping people age the way they want to. So I think that's what's so interesting for me when I think about my career journey. Somebody else earlier said that they were born in the agency world, so was I. And I loved working in agencies. I loved being a mile wide and an inch deep. That was so fun, right? You would get really engaged in something that your client was doing, and then you'd move on to another client. And that just kept it so interesting, so varied. And I cut my teeth in quick service, which you're not allowed to call it fast food, for those of you who know. So it was Burger King, and then I worked for McDonald's, and then Taco Bell. And no one ever said to me when I told anybody that I worked at Burger King what that guy said to me on Sunday. And it really makes the work so important. And I feel like for me, having come a long way, in such an interesting way, I've been blessed with a great, fascinating career. And for it to maybe finish at AARP, I don't know. But it's everything that I did at the agencies, but it's also all of those things that feel important. It's first and foremost a social mission organization, and I don't know if a lot of people know that. We're a nonprofit, and we were born 66 years ago, and have kind of an interesting founder story. Can I tell our founder story, if I make it quick? Does anybody know or care how AARP was founded? Somebody might say you were founded as an insurance company. Somebody might say that. So it's 1948. It's Southern California. And there was this really interesting trailblazing woman named Ethel Percy Andrus, who was one of the first women who made it into like the principal level of higher education. And so she had been a principal in Southern California, and she retired. And so she was volunteering in the area. And at the time, Southern California was very agricultural. And so she was working with a local grocer because he was hooking her up with people who needed help in the area. And so he said, "There's this woman that I need you to go check on." And he gave her the name, the address on this little piece of paper. And she went to the address, and she knocked on the door, and there was nobody there. Nobody answered. So she started to leave. A neighbor came out and said, "Can I help you?" And Ethel said, "Well, I'm looking for this woman who's supposed to be at this address." And the neighbor said, "Yeah, that's not the name of the person who lives in this house." So Ethel figured the grocer got it wrong, and she started to leave. And the neighbor chased after her. And she said, "Wait a second, I think I know who you're looking for. She lives out back." So Ethel kind of trudged to what was out back and found an abandoned chicken coop. Does anybody know what a chicken coop is? And sure enough, there was a woman living in that chicken coop. And she had been a teacher. She was a retired educator. And she had no resources. She had no pension. She had no health care. And she had fashioned a somewhat of a crude living space in this old, unused chicken coop. And thank God Ethel was the one who found her. Because Ethel said, this is shit. Nobody should live like this, especially a retired teacher. And Ethel turned around and within a very short period of time created something called the National Retired Teachers Association. And 10 years later, NRTA became AARP. And she was 78 when all that happened. She worked with presidents. She was an amazing woman. And we think about Ethel all the time. We channel her. I have colleagues here, right? So I'm looking, yep. What would Ethel do? And Ethel was also pretty cool. Whiskey sour was her drink of choice. So when we think about what it's like to represent a brand, that is what makes such a big impact for somebody like me when I think about how we bring this brand to life. Now, I know that most people think about AARP. Has anybody not heard of AARP? Right? That's what we find. Right? People have heard of AARP. Stop people on the street. I know exactly who AARP is. AARP is insurance and discounts and lobbying for old retired senior citizens. Yeah? And that's not wrong. We do that, and we're really proud of that. But we are here to serve people over 50. Anybody? You don't have to raise your hand. I won't ask you. But if you're 50 and you're being invited to join AARP, do you think about being a retired senior citizen? Probably not. Maybe, if you're lucky. I graduated with friends from high school who were retired. I'm like, how did you do that already? It's hard. And honestly, I don't want to retire. And that's true for a lot of people. Either they can't retire or they don't want to retire. So we have to reposition the brand. But we can't get away from who we are and how we were born, and that we do serve seniors. There's nothing wrong with that. But we also need to make sure that we have tangible value and real services and a pull in for people who are 50. Think about somebody who's 50. Maybe you are, so just think about yourself. Your parents may still be alive. Your grandparents may still be alive. And so you think to yourself, wow, that's my parents' organization or my grandma's organization. So my job and my team's job is to put as much elasticity into this brand as we can. Because there are 110 million people in this country who are over 50. That's just this country alone. We're not a global brand, we're a domestic brand. So when people say, oh, that's your segment. Segment? 110 million people? That's like a country. And so the segmentation that we have to do, the AI that we have to use, the technology and innovation that we have to bring to the table is something that isn't really so seen on the surface, but is happening a lot underground. Because we are a big organization. We're a very influential organization. We're powerful. I'm really proud of that. We are so powerful that we can actually shut down a member of Congress's phone bank. Woohoo! Nobody else really can do that. And so the elements of this brand are varied. It's a very complicated brand to manage, but we feel so much responsibility to manage it the way Ethel would be proud that we're managing it.
So how do brands innovate to get to those 110 million folks that are 50 plus?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot today. We talked about Gen Alpha, we talked about Gen Z. Some of you must be Gen X. By the way, Gen X is well into AARP membership. Thank you very much. Did you forget your card? I said we're the forgotten generation. Oh, you are the forgotten generation. And you know what? We are not forgetting you. And that's actually part of what makes it so special when we think about how to help people serve the 50 plus, because that's also a big part of my job. Remember, I work at a social mission organization. So anything that we know, we want to share. There's almost nothing that's proprietary. Obviously, our data is. But the point is to make sure that people over 50 are relevant, respected, getting access to what they need, whether it's big like healthcare or retirement services, or something smaller like a discount at a restaurant that they want to go to, which may be that Panera you were talking about before. I don't think so. But this notion of helping brands recognize and understand some of the trends with the 50 plus is a big part of what we do. As we like to say that we don't fight aging, we fight ageism. And ageism is rampant in our business. I think we can all pretty much appreciate that. The advertising business is the self-professed most ageist industry in the world. We are youth obsessed. But we've always been youth obsessed. That's not new. Boomers were actually the ones who started the obsession with youth when they were young. So we do a lot of studying, we do a lot of research, we have a lot of partnerships, actually designed to help marketers better tap into the 50 plus audience. And you may not be thinking like, well, I don't want the 50 plus audience. I want young hip people. And I get that. But who has the money? Who has the money? Who has the money? Who has the money? It's called the longevity economy. $9 trillion in this country alone contributed to the GDP from people over 50. And that's not everybody, because we know that there are a lot of people over 50 who are struggling, right? We hear it all the time, and it's very true. People are trying to decide whether they eat or take their pills or pay for their heating. Those are very real situations. But for the most part, you have a lot of wealth accumulated in an over 50 market. And one of the things that we like to make sure that people recognize, and we do, like I said, a lot of research, we speak in Cannes, we speak in all the places that's how I met Brand Innovators, that older people actually, they're not stupid, and they get very insulted by a lot of the advertising that's still out there. It's getting a lot better. But the cliches and the stereotypes that they don't know how to use technology, they only wear beige, sort of these empty stares, is really not the case, I promise you. We do a tech trends study. Older people are buying technology. Older people love technology. If you stop them on the street and say, do you like technology? They would say no, but then you ask them, do you like your streaming? Do you like all the convenience in your home? Do you like the backup camera in your car? Yes, yes, yes. They love technology. So much so that we are one of the biggest, we have one of the biggest presence at CES. Does everybody know what CES is? Yeah. So when we first started going to CES, people would be like, AARP, why are you here? And then it was just a hot minute before everybody realized, oh, I know exactly why AARP is here. Because we can move upstream and help all of those tech developers recognize how to design, develop, market products for the biggest spending group in this country and probably the world, which is people over 50. So how we innovate is to kind of get outside of our bubble and to think about the audience, this particular audience, differently, and recognize that we kind of have them stuck in these dangerous cliches. It also is dangerous for society, because when younger people come in contact with the very marketing that says these people are just old and frail and vulnerable, it makes everybody afraid to age. So there's a lot of societal influence here in what we do. But I love this business. I love this industry. I love all the brands. But there's more, I think, that we can do to kind of recognize what's happening with the over 50 audience. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So this brings up an interesting thing, right? So you're talking about ageism for 50 plus, and I fit in that category, and I love being the IT guy for my family. So
you're the help desk.
I am the help desk for the family. But ageism isn't just 50 plus, right? It extends across everything. So what does AARP do for that?
That is a great question, and it's a great point. We're really, really serious about, really fighting ageism, not just, as you say, among older audiences. And sometimes it's important, like we think about where we work. We generalize a lot of different groups. I don't know if you do, and I won't ask you to raise your hand again, but do you ever hear anybody say things like, oh God, millennials just don't have a very good work ethic? Have you ever heard anybody say that? Maybe it's been a while. Sorry? It's lies. It's lies, damn it. Because it's not true. It's not true. That has not been, so to assume you know somebody because you know one thing about them, which is their age, is really dangerous. And that's part of what we want to try and address. Is that you can do your segmentation and you can look at 3 women, and one is 50, one is 52, and one is 54, and they live in the same zip code and have basically the same income, and maybe they have many of the other same demographic qualities, and they could be 3 of the most different people in the world. At least you're looking at other demographic data, but what a lot of people do, and it's still in a lot of the briefs we use, it's still in a lot of the research that we use, as much as we want to be psychographic and values-based and anthropologic in how we do all of our research, we still tend to look at things in age breaks. And you know what? We do it too. It drives me crazy that we're like the last thing that happens to you that's age-based. By the way, you can join at 18. Just thought I would mention that. We aren't allowed to invite you to join until you're about to turn 50. But you can join as long as you're 18. So, go on.
Yeah, so should get on it. So,
and actually, a lot of younger people love joining AARP. They have no issues with it. They don't feel embarrassed about carrying the card. They love the discounts. Oh my God. We're all over TikTok and they love that.
Yeah, which is a great point, right? So how do you guys do messaging, right? So when you think ARP, you think of the ads and, hey, you get the mailer at 50, right? So what's the messaging to get the 18-year-old to join?
So the messaging to get the 18-year-old to join, we don't really seek that out, although we're very happy to support and help 18-year-olds or people over 18. That happens through influencers usually because 2 years ago we had this lightning in a bottle that no one anticipated happening. One of the top influencers, this lovely guy named Zach Abel, who's a travel influencer. And he posted on TikTok. We had no idea he was doing it. And he posted on TikTok to give everybody the best secret advice if you love to travel, which is join AARP. And he went through so much detail. He's in his early 40s. And he went through so much detail about how much money he saved on his British Airways trip and his rental car. And within about 2 weeks, we got over 100,000 members as a result of that one post. There's something interesting, and it wasn't that interesting, but a lot of times when I speak, people will come up to me afterward and they'll say, you seem to kind of understand why people want to join AARP. It's because of the discounts, but you never market the discounts. Like, what's wrong with you? How stupid are you? I'm not allowed to, which is an interesting and very odd thing about working at a place. It's very odd working at AARP. It's great. I love my job. Bounce into work every day. I just don't always bounce home. But it's so interesting and complicated and complex and important. What we do is important. Like that guy on Sunday who it dawned on him, you work for me. And what he meant by that is we are trying to protect Social Security for future generations. We are trying to protect Medicare. We are trying to protect the basics of what people need for affordable health care. That's what he meant. We give people unbiased content. But yeah, we also have the discounts. As a social mission organization, we have to be very careful about how we talk about the commercial value. So we have partners, and some of the partners may be in this room, or people that, we work with hundreds of brands that provide discounts and special services to our members.
Great. So what would you say are the most surprising things you're doing to help drive brand relevance for AARP?
So there's a couple of things. One is I really, really like the brand narrative that we have landed on. And I was mentioning how complicated AARP is. For one person, it's a magazine that they love. Has anybody ever seen the AARP magazine or heard of it? It's the highest circulation magazine in the world. We had John Bon Jovi on the cover last issue. It was a really good issue. So for some people, it's a magazine. For some people, it's discounts. I've been at events in communities, and we'll tell people, oh, if you show us your AARP card, we have a special gift for you. And you know what they'll pull out? They'll pull out their United Healthcare Medicare Supplement Insurance card, which is also what we're known for. And of course, we give them this special gift, but that's not their membership card. So the brand narrative speaks to this, what we were just talking about I talked about it as the longevity economy, but there's an amazing longevity story happening in this country and around the world. And people could live half their lives over 50. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's amazing. That's because of technology and healthcare and access to everything that you need to overcome disease, and you could live to 100. Does that blow anybody else away? Does anybody want to live to 100? I do. I definitely want to live to 100. So if you could live half your life after 50, one of the things that you probably want, and I have research to know that every single one of you wants this, is that you want to make sure that your money, your health, and your happiness live as long as you do. Anybody want to outlive their money? Nobody does. But does that keep you up at night? For some of you, and maybe for some of your parents, it does. So you could live half your life after 50. You want your money, health, and happiness to live as long as you do. That's where we come in. And we consider ourselves to be your wise friend and your fierce defender. Wise friend knows you. You can trust your wise friend, gives you what you need when you need it, content, services, programs. Your fierce defender does the things you can't do alone, like tries to fight ageism and do those important things like protect Social Security, Medicare, and those big sort of systemic issues. If you're over 50 and you're looking for a job, nobody in this room I think is, because you're probably here because you have a job, but you may know somebody who's over 50 and is looking for a job. Boy, that is one of the hardest things in the world to overcome. So what did AARP do? We started offering work and jobs resources, support, training, upskilling, classes, connections. That's the wise friend side. On the fierce defender side, there isn't anybody else who's trying to change the mindset of the hiring manager. The hiring manager wants to know how old you are, in most cases. There are some job postings that don't just have a minimum amount of work experience. You know what they're doing now sometimes is maximum. If you have more than 10 years experience, don't apply. That's what AARP can help change, and you can't do that on your own. Wise friend, fierce defender. So we get all this from the research about how I really don't mind AARP. I like AARP, but I'm just too young. So if you could live half your life over 50 and you want your money, health, and happiness to live as long as you do, the truth is the younger you are, the more you need AARP. And we did 2 ads. We brought 2 ads along that help bring that to life. And I thought we would show those if that's okay.
Yes, please.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will become the undisputed leader of a ginormous pack of dogs. Rescue dogs, to be exact. A second act made possible by the career reskilling courses Lisa's already taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does, so she can finally run with the big dogs and the small dogs who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP.
So we did an ad for money. That was a work ad. We have an ad for happiness. Can you run the happiness spot?
16 years from today, Greg Gerstner will finally land the perfect cannonball. Unsuspecting friends? Check. Epic water displacement? Big check. A work of art that's only possible because Greg is already meeting all these same people at AARP volunteer and community events. They'll keep Greg active, involved, and mischievous, and help make sure his happiness lives as long as he does. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP.
So one of the things that was interesting when we did some of this research is that people liked the money and the health. It made sense to them, right? I know AARP, I know what you do, but it was the happiness message that really got to them. It was emotional. It really connected, especially after coming out of COVID and being with people you love and friends and making friends and seeing friends. And it's done a lot to soften a brand that in many cases can be a little bit hard to understand.
That's awesome. So any questions for Barbara before we...
We have about a minute to wrap up. If there's any questions, by the way, it was Bruce Springsteen that got me on the cover. That was the...
Oh, yeah, we had Bruce on the cover. That was a while ago.
Yeah. Okay, let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.